NBC has announced plans for a spin-off to the hit series Suits, which will be set in Los Angeles.
And I certainly don't want my children to have a life without a mother or a father.
Still experiencing issues after...
I don't want history to repeat itself. I do not want to be a single dad.
It will focus on Meghan Markle's character's struggle to balance her legal career.
New Netflix documentary series, Heart of Invictus, has been labelled bland by some critics.
After leaving Meghan's employment and the...
We all owe you the deepest debt of gratitude. Thank you.
While also caring for an unemployed immigrant.
The way she treated me, she says, of Meghan.
Every single games that I go to, it feels amazing that we've managed to play a part in their recovery.
Can only be described as dehumanizing.
So long as our brothers and sisters are striving to heal and grow, and while I never expected that we would be here in 2025,
she also said, you only hear about the professional positions.
He said the same thing. I don't believe, and he doesn't believe, that there are kids because...
The Sussexes continue to follow their own path in California.
Changed the lives of so many people for the better and for that.
They didn't just mock him, they erased him from existence. Prince Harry, once hailed as the bold, rebellious royal who broke free from the palace machine, is now facing a brutal reality, not ridicule, not backlash, but total irrelevance. And it didn't come from a headline or a scandal or even a rival royal. No, this time, it came from a puppet show. A savage, rubber-faced, late-night comedy that's been ripping into public figures for decades. Spitting Image is no stranger to controversy, but what they did to Harry crossed a new line. First, they turned him into a joke depicting him as a bumbling sidekick, awkward and overshadowed by Meghan at every turn. Then, without warning, they pulled his puppet completely. Gone. Erased. When fans noticed, the creators offered a chilling explanation. There's just nothing left to parody. No discernible talent. That wasn't just a jab. That was a death sentence for his public image. And make no mistake, Harry noticed. Behind the scenes, sources say he was furious. Not just offended, but deeply shaken. He allegedly pushed back, tried to get it pulled, and saw the whole thing as a personal attack on his character, his family, even his mental health advocacy. But this wasn't just a skit gone too far, this was a cultural gut punch. Because when even the comedians stop talking about you, when even the puppets don't see you as worth the airtime, what does that say about where you stand in the world you once dominated? What happened next would ignite a flurry of backlash, media whispers, and a question no one close to Harry wants to answer out loud. Is Prince Harry becoming a punchline? Or has the world simply stopped caring? When Spitting Image brought Prince Harry to life in latex, it wasn't subtle. His puppet had wide, clueless eyes, an awkward posture, and constantly looked to Meghan before speaking, almost as if he couldn't function without her. Meghan's puppet, by contrast, was sharp-tongued, confident, and always several steps ahead. It was comedy, sure, but there was an edge to it that felt personal. The show leaned heavily into the public perception of Harry as a man who gave up everything: his titles, his duties, even his dignity, for a woman who now seemed to lead the charge. In one episode, Harry's puppet was depicted fumbling through ordinary jobs in California, unable to even make a smoothie without Meghan correcting him. The message wasn't hidden. He wasn't a royal rebel, he was a lost boy out of his depth. Fans laughed. Critics called it ruthless, and even longtime supporters of Harry admitted it was hard to watch. It didn't feel like satire. It felt like a slow, rubbery unraveling of a man who once walked behind his mother's casket with the world's sympathy, now reduced to a caricature. But what no one expected was how deeply this portrayal reportedly got under Harry's skin. This wasn't just another tabloid headline or late-night monologue. This felt targeted, raw, and when the puppet suddenly vanished from the next season with no explanation, the whispers only got louder. At first, it just seemed like a shift in creative direction, the kind of thing fans barely notice until they realize something's missing. One season, Prince Harry was front and center on Spitting Image, getting roasted for everything from his royal exit to his new California lifestyle. The next season, gone, completely wiped from the cast. No farewell, no final punchline, just silence. But this wasn't just a random cut, it was a surgical removal. And when fans started asking questions, the show's creators didn't sugarcoat their answer. In fact, their response hit harder than any sketch ever could. They claimed Harry had become too dull to parody, no discernible talent, they said flatly. There's nothing there, no angle, no story. For a man whose every move once made international headlines, the message was brutal. You're not even worth mocking anymore. That's the part that stung the most. Because Spitting Image doesn't avoid controversy, they live for it. They've torn into presidents, prime ministers, and pop culture icons for decades. If you're on their radar, it usually means you still matter. But to be dropped entirely? That's not a roast, it's a rejection. A sign that the cultural spotlight has quietly moved on and you didn't even realize it. What made it even more painful was the context. Harry had spent years trying to redefine himself outside the palace walls. The interviews, the memoir, the Netflix series, they were all attempts to reclaim his narrative, to prove he had something to say. But to these writers, none of that mattered. They looked at everything he'd become and found it boring. Forget scandal, forget outrage. The worst thing they could have done was nothing at all. Behind the scenes, whispers began to surface. Some insiders claimed Harry's camp had been uneasy about the show's portrayal from the start. Allegedly, quiet conversations had taken place, suggestions that the show should consider the emotional toll of its satire, especially for someone so vocal about mental health. But Spitting Image has never been one to play nice. And if anything, those kinds of requests only pour fuel on the fire. So instead of dialing it back, they went nuclear by cutting him out completely. No controversy, no more screen time. Just a single, cold truth echoing behind the scenes. Irrelevance is the real punchline. If there's one thing Prince Harry's proven over the last few years, it's that he cares about how he's perceived. Whether it's Oprah, Netflix, or the pages of his tell-all memoir, Harry has worked relentlessly to reshape his public image away from the palace's control and into something more authentic. So when Spitting Image portrayed him as a lost, talentless sidekick clinging to relevance, insiders say it wasn't just offensive, it was personal. According to multiple media sources close to the Sussex circle, Harry was furious. Not just annoyed, not just embarrassed, furious. He reportedly viewed the show's depiction as a direct attack not only on him, but on the causes he's tied himself to: mental health, trauma recovery, post-royal reinvention. Being made into a puppet wasn't just mockery, it was a threat to the carefully crafted narrative he's spent millions trying to build. Privately, some insiders claim Harry pushed back. Quiet calls, polite but pointed messages. Not legal action, at least not publicly, but a clear attempt to get the show to back off. The ask was subtle. Think about the mental health impact, reconsider the portrayal, maybe soften the tone. But for a show that's mocked literal dictators with googly eyes, that kind of request was never going to land. What made things worse was the silence. The producers didn't respond with sympathy, they didn't respond at all. Instead, they erased the character and hit back with that now infamous line, "No discernible talent." For Harry, it wasn't just a slap in the face, it was a public dismissal of everything he's tried to stand for since leaving royal life behind, and for a man who's always struggled to separate public perception from personal identity, this felt like something deeper than just satire. It felt like the world was laughing at him, not the crown, not the institution, but him, stripped of the titles, stripped of the status, just Harry. And even that, they didn't want on the screen anymore. When news spread that Spitting Image had axed Prince Harry's puppet and labeled him irrelevant, the internet didn't exactly rise up in defense. Instead, reactions were mixed and brutally honest. Some viewers laughed it off, calling it classic British satire. Others said it was a little too close to the truth. One viral post read, "If he can't take a puppet joke, how's he going to survive Hollywood?" But not everyone thought it was funny. Sussex supporters quickly came to Harry's defense, calling the move bullying in disguise and accusing the show of punching down. "Mock the monarchy, not the man," one fan tweeted. Another pointed out that targeting someone who openly talks about trauma and therapy wasn't edgy, it was cheap. The backlash sparked a wider debate. When does satire cross the line from comedy into cruelty? Still, for many, it was hard to ignore the irony. Prince Harry, who once embraced a royal role built on public attention, now seemed crushed by the same spotlight he used to enjoy. The same man who gave raw, emotional interviews and cashed massive checks for documentaries was suddenly upset by a rubber puppet and a harsh joke. And that contradiction didn't go unnoticed. Comedians, commentators, and even some mental Health advocates weighed in. Some argued that if Harry wanted to be seen as a regular guy, he had to take the hits like everyone else. You can't ask to be both a public figure and off limits, one late-night host quipped. Others pushed back, saying that mockery of mental health should never be normalized even under the banner of satire. But perhaps the most telling reaction wasn't the noise online, it was the silence from the palace. No statements, no clarifications, not even a no comment, as if even they knew. This wasn't a fight worth entering, and for Harry, that silence might have been the loudest response of all. If there was any doubt about how Spitting Image really felt about Prince Harry, the showrunner's comments cleared it up and they didn't pull any punches. In a rare, direct statement during an interview, one of the lead creatives behind the show was asked why Harry had been cut. Their response? Blunt, dismissive, and icy, there's just no discernible talent there. Nothing left to parody. It was the kind of line that doesn't just sting, it sticks. A soundbite built to go viral. Within hours, it was plastered across headlines, quote tweeted with laughing emojis, and dissected by royal watchers and media critics alike. But beneath the humor was a clear message: Prince Harry had become, in their eyes, creatively useless. Not interesting, not relevant, just flat, and if that wasn't bad enough, they didn't stop with him. When pressed further, the showrunner added that Meghan, not Harry, was the one who still held public interest. She's layered, unpredictable, calculating. She gives us something to work with, they said. Harry? He's just there. That comment hit like a hammer, not just to Harry's ego, but to the entire brand he's been trying to build. For years, he's tried to show the world he's more than just a prince following in someone else's footsteps, that he's his own man with his own voice, his own causes. But in that one brutal quote, the showrunner reduced all of that to background noise. To a man orbiting someone else's spotlight. It wasn't just shade, it was humiliation. A public creative dismissal from one of the UK's most iconic satire machines. And in many ways, it exposed the fragile balance Harry's been trying to maintain, demanding respect, but recoiling at ridicule, telling his story, but expecting everyone to handle it with white gloves. But comedy isn't built for royalty, it's built for raw honesty. And Spitting Image just delivered theirs with the sharpest punchline yet. This wasn't the first time Prince Harry lost it over a joke, and it probably won't be the last. Spitting Image may have gone further than most, but it's part of a growing pattern. Every time a comedian, cartoonist, or satirical show pokes fun at Harry, the reaction is the same: outrage, victimhood, and whispers of behind-the-scenes damage control. It happened with South Park, when the show lampooned him and Meghan as fame-obsessed hypocrites. It happened with late-night hosts who dared to joke about Spare. And now, it's happened with a puppet show that once roasted Margaret Thatcher, Vladimir Putin, and the entire British monarchy without blinking. Critics have started asking the uncomfortable question: is Prince Harry becoming too fragile for the public stage? He wanted out of the royal bubble, and he got it. But with freedom comes exposure, and not just the kind you can edit or script. In the real world, the media doesn't play by palace rules. Satire doesn't issue warnings. And public figures don't get to control the narrative 24/7. What's even more ironic is that Harry built his entire post-royal identity around speaking his truth. He's made a career of revealing uncomfortable realities about the monarchy, the media, and even his own trauma. But when someone else does it even in jest, it suddenly becomes unacceptable. And that contradiction hasn't gone unnoticed. It's the ultimate hypocrisy, demanding the right to speak openly, while shutting down anyone who dares to speak back. To others, it's a sign that Harry's still carrying wounds he hasn't healed, and that public life, especially in today's vicious media landscape, might be taking a bigger toll than he's willing to admit. Either way, one thing is clear: the more Harry reacts to the jokes, the more powerful those jokes become. And every time he pushes back, he risks confirming the very image he's trying to escape, an image not of a strong, independent man, but of a fragile figure who simply can't take the heat. After all the headlines, the puppet drama, and the sharp-tongued jabs, the big question remains: where does this leave Prince Harry's public image? For a man who once commanded global attention simply by stepping out of a crowd, the reality is starting to look harsher than ever. Being kicked off a puppet show might sound like a punchline, but it's actually a brutal symbol of something bigger, an unmistakable sign that his spotlight is fading. Royal watchers and media insiders say Harry is drifting into punchline territory, a space where the public no longer takes him seriously. The carefully crafted narrative of the wounded, truth-telling prince is being overshadowed by caricatures, both literal and metaphorical. And when satire stops aiming for nuance and starts settling for dismissal, it's a clear signal that the cultural tide has turned. At the same time, Harry still has his supporters. Many argue that the constant mockery ignores the man behind the headlines, a person dealing with complex trauma, relentless media scrutiny, and the impossible task of redefining a centuries-old institution on his own terms. They say the satire crosses a line, especially when it targets mental health struggles or personal pain. But public image isn't just about supporters, it's about perception. And right now, that perception is fragile, conflicted, and for many, increasingly dismissive. The same man who once walked solemnly behind his mother's coffin is now reduced in the eyes of some to a puppet without strings, a figure caught between fading relevance and desperate attempts to reclaim it. In the end, this puppet controversy isn't just a silly skirmish. It's a reflection of the complex, often brutal reality Prince Harry faces: fame without the royal shield, scrutiny without the privilege, and a very public battle to prove he's more than just a punchline. So, what happens when even the puppets stop talking about you? When satire turns from sharp wit to silent dismissal, it's more than just a joke, it's a sign that the world's attention has shifted elsewhere. For Prince Harry, being kicked out of one of Britain's most ruthless comedy shows isn't just embarrassing. It's a metaphor for a fading spotlight, a shrinking stage, and a reputation that's harder than ever to control. Whether you see this as a harsh but fair critique or a crawl-over step, one thing is undeniable: Harry's journey from royal heir to cultural punchline is a story that's still unfolding. The question now is whether he can break free from the caricature and find a new way to stay relevant, or if this puppet's silence signals a much quieter future. In a world obsessed with fame, influence, and image, sometimes being forgotten hurts the most. And for a prince who once seemed untouchable, that's the most shocking twist of all.